Hello, this is Elena with Black Sheep 303 Creative. My project today uses Elizabeth Craft Designs products along with sort of a silver and gold and white color palette to create what I think is a somewhat elegant holiday card. So to start off with, I have the Snowflake and Leaf, or Leaf and Snowflake stencil, and I'm going to stick this down to the front of an A2 sized white top folding card base using some painter's tape to just hold it in place. And then I'm going to be using gel medium, which is like an artist's medium that can like extend paint dry time and stuff like that. But today I'm going to be using it as an adhesive. So I'm going to spread it carefully through the snowflake pattern on the stencil using a small palette knife. Now I am kind of holding the stencil down as I'm like spreading the gel medium just to make sure that there's good contact between the paper and the stencil, so that none of the gel medium is going to seep under that stencil accidentally. And so I'm just spreading it carefully, and then I will kind of go over the whole thing and pull off any excess that I don't need and just scrape it right back into the jar. And then I will very carefully pull off the painter's tape and then pull up the stencil. Now it's important that the stencil stays in place until you remove it, as you see there, because if it moves, it can smush the gel medium around and mess up your pattern. Now, right now, this is a card base, but that's going to change. I am going to actually flip this whole pattern over when I use it. So I'm going to trim it off and just make it a front panel. So I did do this out of 100-pound white soft finish cardstock, but I think you could also do it out of 85-pound if you wanted to, just because it's only going to be a front panel. But I'm using brushed pewter glitter now, and I'm just kind of almost like tossing it onto those snowflakes in a kind of random pattern. I did not want to cover the entire thing because I wanted a two-tone look. And now I'm covering up the rest of it with champagne gold glitter. So it's getting a very like antiqued silver and gold look to it, because both of those glitters are sort of like slightly darker. It's a darker silver and a darker gold, and very, very pretty. So I just set that aside to dry. It's very important that the entire thing dry before you touch it. So that took me in Colorado, which is quite arid, about an hour, hour and a half. So it might take you longer in a more humid climate. So just bear that in mind. But while you're waiting for that to dry, you could heat emboss your greeting. So this is All Is Calm, All Is Bright from the Holiday Cheer clear stamp set. And I've stamped it in VersaMark Onyx Black, or VersaMark, not Onyx Black, just clear ink. And I've heat embossed that in silver embossing powder. And that's on some 85-pound white soft finish cardstock. And now here's the real card base that I'm going to use. So again, it's an A2 size top folding card base, and I'm going to add a glitter edge all the way around it to match my snowflakes. So I've taken 6mm clear double-sided adhesive tape, and I've run it right up to the top and bottom edges, and then I'm going to remove the backing and then just pour the champagne gold glitter over it, rub it off or tap it off, and then rub it with my finger to get it shiny, and then clean it with a Swiffer cloth to pull up any excess, and just repeat this for all four sides of the card. So you have to do two edges first and then the other two, just because you have to overlap the tape at the corners, obviously, but super easy. And it allows me to have a nice matching glitter paper without wasting a lot of glitter, because I'm only getting it in the areas I need it, which is just the edges. And then I had a little bit of a white space at the top where I didn't quite meet the edge. So I'm taking my quickie glue pen and using that and then dipping it into the glitter to just get a little bit of glitter on that edge that I didn't quite get with the tape. So here's the completed snowflake panel. So I have now trimmed this off the card base and trimmed it down to 4 by 5 1/4. And I just cleaned it off with the Swiffer cloth, and it is good to go. And then here's the die set that I used for the rest of the elements. And it's, as you can see, it's a large die set and really, really pretty. So I die cut out 2 of those large birch trees, 1 of the standing reindeer, and then 1 of the snowbank. Now the birch trees I did cut out of Ranger gloss paper. So it's a very glossy white. I did that on purpose because I wanted it to stand out from the matte white background, and adding a different texture, which would be like shiny versus matte, helps it do that. It's a little difficult to see in the photos. I'm a little worried you can't really tell in the video, but in person it's very pretty, and you can really see the white on white because of the different textures. Now the snowbank I did out of 85-pound white soft finish cardstock, so that's definitely more subtle, but that's okay. Wasn't quite as important. And then my reindeer is out of silver mirror card, and I'm using 6mm adhesive, 3mm adhesive on that, as well as some quickie glue pen to adhere down all the extra like branches and legs and all kinds of little details. Now honestly, I should have used Zig 2-8 glue on this. Zig takes a little longer to dry, and so the quickie glue dried too quickly, so it didn't quite get all those little edges stuck down, so I had to go over them twice. So you might want to use Zig instead. Now you can see I did a little bit of surgery on that second birch tree. I cut off some of the branches because I didn't want it to look exactly like the other one. And now here's the greeting that I've trimmed way down, and I've added foam tape to the back. That is also on 85-pound white soft finish cardstock, which I have to say does a great job with heat embossing. Like it really releases the embossing powder from areas that you don't need it really nicely. I've never had anything else do that, so it's pretty cool for that. Now, of course, I have to have shadows under my animals. I can't not do it. So I took my Copic C00, which is a very pale gray, and I just drew a light line under the deer just to make it look like he's actually standing on something. And then the trees have these embossed marks on them. So, you know, like birch trees and aspen trees have those lines. This die embosses those on there. So I'm taking my C3 Copic marker, which is slightly darker than the COO, and I'm just going over those lines for a very, very subtle detail. Now you do have to use an alcohol marker for this because regular markers will not dry on that glossy paper. So just bear that in mind if you do use any gloss paper for this kind of thing. Regular markers don't dry on it. And so I'm leaving the branches off the top because I knew I wanted them to stick off the top over the border. And I'm just adhering the entire panel down to that glittered up card base using 6mm double-sided adhesive tape. And I'm just trimming off the excess branches so they go to the edges of the card, and that is the completed project. And hopefully you can see all the difference in like shine and glitter and texture going on that really helps the white on white as well as the metallics be visually interesting. Like they're not all the same. There's definitely some difference going on. Hopefully, especially you can tell there. And so in reality, I'm not sure you can tell in the photos, but in reality, it's actually pretty elegant looking, if I do say so myself. So hopefully I've given you a little inspiration on using metallics and whites for an elegant holiday card, as well as introduce you to that fabulous reindeer die set from Elizabeth Craft Designs that is so amazing and well worth the investment. Thanks so much for watching. Supplies are linked in the video description and over on my blog. Here are 2 more Christmas projects that I have done both this year and last year. Thanks so much and have a great day.